Oh, wait, no.
Hello and welcome to the 36 Minutes of Heaven we call the D1Baseball Weekend Preview. I am your host, Michael Patrick Rooney. This evening's episode brought to us, as always, by our good friends at S2 Cognition. S2 Cognition delivers a revolutionary approach to helping athletes understand how in-game decisions impact their performance from youth levels all the way to the pros. Thank you to the good people at S2 Cognition. I am joined, as always, by S2 and Aaron Fitt and Joe Healy and Kendall Rogers. Gentlemen, good evening. How we doing?
Over, by the way, on 36 minutes. We should keep a log of
always,
that.
Doing well. I'm afraid to give Aaron a cognitive test right now.
I'm going to mash the under on 36 minutes. We're going to keep this tight, boys. I believe in us.
Aaron's going to just close out of the little recording thing, and like that's how
Aaron's analysis is going to be. Runes is going to be, hey, what player should we watch? He's going to go, one name, and then that's
John Doe, Roy Hobbs.
Yeah.
Boys, we do have a couple inane banter topics we have to address quickly before we rifle through the series. Fitzy's smirking at me.
You're not going to come out with the best sleepover house again, are you?
No, were you guys?
My wife
I'm sad I missed that
question the other night.
Yeah, you guys did a horrible job with that. Horrible.
My house. I would have had a great answer for you, Runes. My house was the sleepover house.
It was. See, there you go.
It was.
Joe, when you don't attend the podcast, all heck breaks loose. Boys, here's the first thing that needs clarification. The podcast earlier this week, the great town of Cut and Shoot, Texas came up. And unfortunately, Cut and Shoot, Texas is in the headlines because a not good person at all was apprehended by the authorities in Cut and Shoot. He committed a heinous crime, a tragedy. So I was thinking, man, I had people message me on Twitter about that. And my first instinct was, hey, I guess we got to drop the Cut and Shoot Texas bit. But then I was thinking, man, that's kind of unfair. Like, I don't even know if this guy was a resident of Cut and Shoot. He was probably just passing through.
No, he wasn't. He lived in Cleveland, Texas.
There you go. So we won't be bringing up Cleveland. But there's a lot of good people in Cut and Shoot, Texas. Did you know, Fitzy, that Roy Harris, heavyweight title contender in 1958, fought Floyd Patterson, his hometown, Cut and Shoot, Texas?
I did know that, Royce.
You did know that?
Yep.
Okay.
No, you didn't.
He did not.
I actually know a girl whose family's all from Cut and Shoot.
Oh, that's so great. Where do they go to high school in Cut and Shoot? There's not a Cut and Shoot high school.
Conroe, maybe, Joe?
I think they're probably in Conroe ISD because it's just up the road.
Cut and Shoot Consolidated, not a thing.
I mean, I am willing to funnel money into there just to have Cut and Shoot high school.
Oh, my
we got to be the Cut and Shoot Cowboys, right? If they have a school.
Yeah, I think
you would think.
That's exactly right.
I'm going to shout out, like on every episode, the new bit will be, I'm going to shout out a local business in Cut and Shoot, Texas. Today's business is the bowling alley located on Highway 105 called Time to Spare.
No way.
Yes. Tonight's episode brought to you by Time to Spare.
Cut and Shoot has a bowling alley now?
They do. They've got a
Dude, I bet that is a seedy bowling alley.
It's right up my alley. It's got 4.4 stars on the Google reviews.
Yes.
So like,
Joe, could you
you're gonna
the address
next time you
for our
come down to
listeners
Texas,
again?
you and I were going to the bowling alley and Cut and Shoot.
We should.
Yeah, we are.
I'm
but
pulling
by
up
the way, not to be
13027 Highway 105. And it's technically listed in Conroe, Texas, 77306.
Can I just go ahead and tell you, Runes?
Please.
The bar fight meter and Cut and Shoot, I can guarantee you is like a 9.8.
I think you might be undershooting it right now. I think it's like a 50 out of 10.
I feel like that's the number one city name in America, followed by Truth or Consequences, New Mexico.
That's good too. Yeah, you're traveling through Cut and Shoot, Texas. You keep your mouth shut and your head down and just go for the best.
That's not the kind of place Aaron goes to.
No, nor should he. All right, boys, let's play the feud. We got schedules to keep around here. So we're gonna go through the series, and we'll just rotate who previews the series. The rest of us will do a person of interest, and we will go from there. I'm 5 games out of first place. So Mark Etheridge and I are no longer speaking. We will speak after the season, but for right now, this is strictly business, and Team Etheridge must come down. Fitzy, pick a series and please preview it for us.
Yeah, I will.
Hey-o.
I will pick a series.
Great, thank you.
How about Boston College, Wake Forest? We got a top 25 showdown here down the road. Big weekend for the BC Eagles, trying to get themselves into hosting position. keep themselves in hosting position. I think we have them right now as a host, but I think they need to make sure they don't get swept. That's very important here. They can get a game this weekend at Wake, and then I think the last weekend for them is winnable. The path is there for them now, but like this is coming off a disappointing home series loss at Clemson. Important series for BC, and Wake is just kind of cruising along here. You got to wonder at some point, is there going to be a hiccup for Wake Forest? I don't know. Maybe. I mean, this is BC's no pushover. We'll see. I'm picking Wake. I'm picking Wake, by the way.
Smart. Kendall, who's your player of interest, person of interest?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Joe Vetrano from BC.
You
think back to the Tennessee game earlier this year. He was a huge component in that win. I think when you're playing a team like Wake, you've got to have somebody offensively that goes out there and it kind of gives you a jolt and gives you a boost and does something to keep up with their power hitters. And I think for BC to win that series, I would look at Joe Vetrano, the big time slugger for those guys.
Joseph?
Well, since Kendall went BC, I guess I'll go with a Wake player. I was going to pick for BC Barry Walsh, and I was going to say that among the interesting things about Barry Walsh is that if you ask me how old a person named Barry Walsh is, I would guess 52, 53 years old probably.
Higher Chuck.
But he's been Insurance. He's been a catalyst for that lineup so far this season. But I will instead go the Wake Forest direction, and let's go Tommy Hawk. I mean, a little bit of a overlooked guy in that offense going into the season. There's a lot of emphasis, obviously, on Brock Wilken, who's having a great year, and Nick Kurtz, who's been great when he's been healthy. But Hawk gives you a different look, obviously. It's a very different type of player than those big power hitters, but hitting nearly 400, getting on base at a better than 500 clip. He walks more than he strikes out. He's got a little bit of speed on a team that doesn't do a whole lot of that, and why would you, I guess, given their lineup. But he just gives Wake a little bit of a different look offensively. And, how can you not love a guy with his kind of stature and just kind of his game for a team that doesn't give you a whole lot of that?
I love it. You know who I'm going to go with, boys? I'm going to go Fitzy. What you said about BC is so spot on, right? Like they cannot get swept in this deal. And Andrew Roman, who's kind of their closer, I suppose, would be the guy that they are. I'm trying to figure out how many appearances he has. He's got 17 appearances. He's got a .90 ERA, 8 saves, and Roman they are 15-2 in games where he pitches. So they've just got to find out. He's a Division III transfer, like Chris Flynn. He's from Salve Regina, and just kind of like a guy that it's not overpowering, but it's trickery and savvy, and they got to get him the ball with a chance to win a game at least once this weekend. But he doesn't generate as many headlines as Chris Flynn, but I do think he's equally important. So give me Andrew Roman right there. Kendall, you pick the next series.
Yeah, I'll go with Cal State Fullerton and TCU. I think coming into the season, had you told me that this would be more of a must-win series for TCU than Fullerton, I probably would have totally disagreed with you. But you look at the job that Jason Dietrich has done this year. They're sitting at 17-4 in the Big West Conference. Cal State Fullerton actually 9-6 guys against RPI top 50. They got that series win against Texas in non-conference. So Fullerton goes on the road, and this is a huge series for TCU guys. I mean, TCU is a club right now. Sitting at 8-10 in the Big 12. They're on the bad side of the bubble. They're 54 in the RPI. They got a losing record against top 50 RPI. So this is a game, or this is a series where TCU can win it. That really helps their at-large case. If they lose it, that means that the last couple of weekends of conference and in Arlington, like they're going to have to do something a little bit unexpected, and they certainly have the talent to do that. But you just kind of wonder a little bit if the way they played Monday against Texas, the way they played in the midweek, if that is kind of the boost that this team needed, especially from an offensive standpoint, because their offense finally got rolling again.
Joe, player of interest.
TCU is a team that you just kind of, and Runes, this better than anybody, with calling their games over the weekend. I just want to kind of like grab them by the lapels and shake them and kind of be like, your season is almost over, like, what are you doing? Just when you consider where they started with that weekend in Arlington to start the season. And if you would have told me they are where they are now, I would have thought they would have had catastrophic injuries or something, And in light of that, my player to watch is Braden Taylor. I mean, he's had an okay season, a perfectly okay season. But given what he was last year and thinking he'd take the next step, he hasn't quite lived up to that. And that's kind of in the macro view, what's been interesting about this TCU team is their best guys offensively are not necessarily the guys who carried over from last year that we thought, you thought that the foundation would be Braden Taylor and Elijah Nunez and guys like that. And those guys haven't been the ones driving the bus. It's been Anthony Silva and Cole Fontenelle and Trey Richardson, guys like that. And you just think, man, if this lineup could kind of all come together and play well at the same time, they'd be really, really dangerous, but we just haven't seen it.
Yeah, very, very fair. It's TCU is, I would say everything you said about Braden Taylor, Joe, covering them for 2 games, I still am convinced he's a big leaguer and maybe a long time big leaguer. Like the talent is very easy. But man, like you can go 4 or 5 innings and not even know he's out there. Like he's so quiet, and I know I'm probably punishing him for he's just a quiet kid, like he's not a showman in any way, but man, it's wild for me I don't know how to square that thought that I think he's still a big leaguer and yet he's low impact.
Yeah. He needs to show a little urgency. I feel like sometimes a little bit more energy.
Yeah, the most urgency they're getting is from their freshmen. I love the freshman class at TCU. I'll go on the Fullerton side, guys. Player of interest to me on Fullerton. They're really fascinating. Like Nate Nankiel he was a big recruit or, a famous guy coming in, and he's kind of backed that up this year. 944 OPS, 17 doubles, 5 home runs. He was really good in the fall when I saw them. They also have 2 sixth-year senior pitchers, Tyler Stoltz and Finn Chester, who are their top 2 guys when it comes to innings pitched. And neither of them are, velocity guys or anything like that. Stoltz is a pitchability lefty, and Chester is a sinker slider guy, totally pitch to contact, but he's got 4 walks in 48 innings. So Fullerton is, I'm thrilled by how they've played this year. I don't know that I'm buying them to like win a regional or anything, but good for Fullerton to get, Jason Dietrich and that club to get back on the, on the winning trail, if you will. Fitzy, player of interest.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Zach Lou. I was afraid you were gonna pick my pocket because you always talk about Zach Lou.
Oh, I love Zach Lou.
You always pick my pocket. Short guy, veteran guy, hitting 3-hole for this team. I love it. I love when a short guy is hitting 3-hole. I had a nice weekend last weekend in that series win against Northridge. Having a good year, just a solid player. Walks more than he strikes out. Moves the ball around. It's just a classic Fullerton player, and I just wanted to talk about him because he's awesome.
Do you have a good third baseman on the all-fit team, Fitzy, or he's got a chance?
He's got a real chance.
Yeah, he's not as like some of those famous guys like Tommy White, Jake Geloff. I mean, they're not all fit material.
Not all fit material.
No offense, gentlemen. But Joseph, what would you like to go with for a series?
We'll go South Carolina, Kentucky. The couple things I'm really interested in with this series, and one is South Carolina's injury situation. I just saw the only real update I've gotten today is that, first of all, Mark Kingston got suspended. So your head coach for the South Carolina Gamecocks today was Monty Lee.
How about that?
So, yeah, South Carolina.
Did he get bounced? King got bounced out of the last game.
Apparently so. I did not clock that, but apparently so. I saw the beat writers. Shout out to Michael Anana and Alan Cole, tweeting about that Monty Lee was the head coach tonight. So how about that? But in a post-game update, Monty Lee said that Talmadge Lecroy is going to make the trip to Lexington, but he's still a ways away from being fully healthy. And I can kind of attest to it. He pinch hit in the series I was at last weekend in Columbia, and as soon as the ball was put in play, it was not a good scene. Like it was limping up the first base line. So still a ways away on that. They're still missing Noah Hall. Braylon Wimmer is out. Will McGillis is out. And you really saw those holes last week. And it seemed like every time they really got something going in the first 2 games against Auburn, like here came the 8 and 9 hitters who otherwise wouldn't be in the lineup if it weren't for those injuries. And so it hurt them. So I'm fascinated by that, how they handled that on the road against Kentucky. And if you're Kentucky, you got to kind of get moving here. We knew the second half of their schedule was going to be a lot tougher, but they've really started dropping more games, I think, than I thought they would. And so I still like this team to make a regional. With their RPI, they probably only need to get to 13 SEC wins. Kentucky does. But they sure do seem destined to make it interesting. So this feels like a big weekend because they're at home. South Carolina's, kind of hurting right now in a literal sense. So I think there's an opportunity here for Kentucky to maybe get a little something done. And if not, then, the last 2 weekends are suddenly going to be white knuckle situations for Kentucky. And certainly if they lose this series, then the idea of hosting is out the window at that point. So a big series on both sides.
To your point, Joe, this is a real opportunity for Kentucky. I think we've all looked at their schedule and said, you're totally toast. And then now South Carolina rolls in here really banged up. My player of interest will be one of 3 pitchers, Joe, and I'm going to ask you to pick one for me. It just feels like if Kentucky doesn't pitch this weekend, if they don't start pitching, they've got to pitch to do what they want to do. So to me, it's Darren Williams or Zach Lee or Tyler Bosma. Which of the 3 who should be my player of interest, Joe?
I'd say Zach Lee. When he's throwing well, and I actually went back today. You're catching me at a good time because I went back today and watched his start from last Sunday against Vanderbilt. And when Zach Lee is around the zone and throwing the ball well, that kind of funky short arm motion that he has gets a lot of arm side run on the ball. And he was in the kitchen of a lot of Vanderbilt right-handed hitters early in that game. Weak ground balls to the left side, broken bat type. With wood bats would have been broken bat type stuff. And with South Carolina's offense, that's kind of what you need to do. You need to try to get them on the ground, keep them from being able to get a ball up in the air. Kentucky Broad Park plays pretty big, but the way South Carolina swings it, I don't think the ballpark factors really matter all that much. So if Zach Lee's throwing it well, I think he's a pretty good matchup for that offense.
By the way, Fitzy, before you go, for those playing the D1 Baseball Weekend Preview bingo game at home, the great Jennifer Rooney, #JRO, activated the blender at the 16-minute mark. So for those keeping score at home, yes. Fitzy, player of interest.
I'm going to go with Will Sanders here because you may recall just 2 weeks ago, I wrote a column about how, it looks like Will Sanders is back now. And, this is the guy that we're going to have down the stretch. It's a game changer for the Gamecocks and all this stuff. And then he went out to Auburn and gave up 8 runs. And I just I can't figure this guy out. Will the real Will Sanders please stand up? Please stand up because I don't know what to expect. I mean, he went 6 innings. I mean, he gave him some length, but 8 runs. I just, we know the fastball's hittable. Even when I saw him good at Florida, he didn't miss any bats with the fastball. So I guess he's just really got to be sharp with the secondary stuff, and he's got to locate with the fastball. And maybe that's just who he is. He's going to have good days and bad days because it all just depends on how sharp he is with the secondary stuff, with the fastball command. I guess you just have a lower, lower margin of error when you don't miss bats with the fastball. But that said, they need him. They need him to be good. They need him to be good, Will Sanders, here down the stretch. So that's the guy I got my eye on here.
Like it. Kendall?
I'll go with Jackson Gray. I think when you look at Kentucky, they're one of those teams that are going to make you make plays. And I think when you look at him, he's really a versatile player. I mean, he hits for an average. He can hit for some pop. He's got, I think, over 15 stolen bases this year. And I kind of think back to, 2 or 3 Kentucky games I've watched over the last 3 weeks. It seemed like their offense kind of went the direction that he went. Like if he had a big game, the rest of the team kind of followed suit. And so I would go with Jackson Gray. I think the one outlier was, I think, over the weekend, one of the losses to Vandy. I think he had 3 hits and they lost that game. But otherwise, if you look at their box scores, when he does well, the team kind of follows suit. So I'll go with him.
I like it. Boys, let me go. We all did player of interest, right? We're ready for the next series? Affirmative?
Correct.
Yes.
Let me do the Northeastern Huskies, the recently ranked Northeastern Huskies at UNCW. Obviously a huge game for them. Hey, by the way, boys, how did Northeastern do in their midweek game? They had a big midweek game too, didn't they? Were they playing one of the New England schools?
No, they had a game against Stonehill, who was number 302 in the RPI, and they canceled it. So that's a big win for Northeastern.
That is a big one. I thought they had 4 big games this week. Maybe they have a midweek game coming up down the road. That's
next week they go to Maryland.
There you go. That's what I'm thinking of. Okay, cool. So I will just say that UNCW just has so much pedigree, right? Like they're just go to regionals. It feels like at least every other year. They've played really, really well. This is, I would say maybe this is too aggressive, but it does feel like the Colonial Championship runs through Wilmington. Like, you're going to have to deal with them if you're going to be the Colonial champions. And I don't want to paint Northeastern as a one-hit wonder, because they're certainly not that. They've won the league 2 times, which is incredible, given that they are, so far north in a Southern league. I just think Northeastern's for real. I think that this is the team that went to the Fayetteville Regional a couple years ago, could have done damage. That regional just turned out to be really hellacious. Northeastern's very interesting. They're kind of like Santa Barbara to me, where they've got a very unique identity. It's like power and run game offensively. They're just very aggressive in all facets. So I'm picking Northeastern, but certainly this is a really formidable challenge for these guys. Yeah. Fitzy, player of interest.
Yeah, fun series. I'm going to be there for probably the first 2 games. Definitely Friday. Nice. Probably the first 2. My player of interest here is Brock Wills for UNC Wilmington. High-profile freshman for the Seahawks. I know David Seifert loved this guy coming in. He had seen him somewhere along the line, I think, in high school, and was really talking him up. And I saw him in the fall and walked away with kind of the same impression. Like, hey, this guy, he got real tools. That bat it's a real bat, and I think it's starting to come on. I think he might have had 6 hits in 2 games this past weekend. They had a game canceled. It feels like this guy's really going to hit, and is hitting right now. He's hitting leadoff for them, plays second base, but it's just really the hit tools which you're buying. It's a really sweet, smooth, natural swing and feel for the barrel. And so anyway, that's a guy I'm looking forward to watching this weekend.
Love it. Kendall.
Yeah, I think when I look at this series overall, I kind of go with Jacob Schaefer for UNC Wilmington. I kind of wrote them up a couple weeks ago, and Randy Hood talked a lot about his progression. He struggled over the weekend, or last weekend on the mound in the Friday game against Hofstra, I think it was. And when you look at this Northeastern lineup, you kind of alluded to it, but it's a really interesting lineup because historically you kind of look at Northeastern and look at Mike Lavin's club because of Aaron Savali and guys like that, and go, oh, they're going to be pitching heavy, like they're a pitching-oriented team. But this is a club that has 4 guys with double-digit homers, has another guy with 9, another guy with 7. So I think Jacob Schaefer kind of getting them off to a good start, allowing them not to have to tap in that bullpen early in that series will be critical. And so I'll go with Jacob Schaefer. But by the way, here's a little note about Northeastern. I saw this picture on their website a minute ago, and I went and Googled it just to make sure what I was seeing was correct. Did you know Northeastern has their graduations at Fenway Park?
The school does.
The school has their graduation ceremonies at Fenway Park.
I did not know that.
I'm going to go back to school.
Yeah. That's kind of awesome.
That is pretty
That
awesome.
is really awesome.
Very cool. Joseph, so you got to – well, no, you can go – I don't want to steer the jury here. Joe, who's your player of interest?
Oh, it's all right. I pivoted a little bit. Had I gone with a UNCW player, I would have gone Tanner Thatch, who is one of the other big-name freshmen they have. And I think in terms of – current production might be the more impactful of the two with him and Brock Wills. Brock Wills, I think, still has some more growth to do than Thatch does. I mean, Thatch is a big physical first baseman who also at some point down the line will probably pitch for the Seahawks a little bit. But he hails from way up northeast in the state of North Carolina and from Perquimans County. Belvedere, North Carolina, the name of the town there. I only really know that because I asked the UNCW SID where that was when I saw it on the roster.
What's the name of the county? I thought I knew all the counties in this state. But
Perquimans.
Perquimans.
Oh yeah,
yeah. Up in I think it's in the northeast.
Watch out for those people from Perquimans County.
Yeah, little small town of Belvedere, North Carolina.
Great cigar bars, though, Fitzy. It's all you. Get up there.
Yeah.
Instead, I will go Northeastern. And as I was looking through Northeastern to pick a player, it's hard to do because these guys are just playing a different sport than most of the rest of the teams in that region, right? I mean, so some of their numbers are just nuts. Like Cam Maldonado is a freshman who's, hitting almost 400, has stolen more than 20 bags, has some pop. They've got Griffin Young, a reliever who has a 42-7 strikeout to walk ratio in 35 innings. But I'm going to go with Mike Sirota. The kind of the biggest name guy I think that the Northeastern has. And it's just that I think he typifies where that program is at because a player of his quality was not going to Northeastern 5-7 years ago. And so it just kind of shows where this program is at, that a guy like Mike Sirota is there to start with. And also, oh, by the way, has stayed there, at least for now anyway. But, he's clearly a Northeastern guy, both in a literal and a figurative sense. And really is kind of, again, just shows how far this program has come.
Love it. Fitzy, before you pick the next series, our second sponsor, Blast Baseball. If you're ready to dominate at the plate, Blast Baseball is trusted by more MLB or college teams than any other hitting solution. The Blast sensor attaches to the knob of any bat, providing real-time feedback with every swing. Go to blastmotion.com, enter the code D1Baseball at checkout, and save $10. I want to test that out in Omaha, but we're going to need a Blast sensor on my hamstring because that's definitely going out. But let me give you guys some stats on Northeastern. But we know Northeastern has got to play UNCW this weekend. We mentioned the midweek game against Maryland. They still have to play College of Charleston. They got to go to William & Mary. So they have some tough games ahead. Statistically, Northeastern, this is bonkers. They are 4th in the country in earned run average. They are 21st in scoring. So their pitchers are 4th. Their hitters are 21st in scoring. They are 14th in home runs. Now, just from a strike throwing perspective, they're 5th in the country in strike throwing and walks per 9 innings. So Northeastern, very, very fascinating club statistically on both sides of the baseball. Aaron J. Fitt, what's your next series?
Yeah, let's go with the really big showdown out west here. Stanford going to Arizona State. First place in the Pac-12 on the line. Cardinal currently in first place, but Arizona State is a much different team at home, guys. They're 20-5 at home this year, just 9-10 on the road. And this series is indeed at Phoenix Muni. And so that is fascinating to me. How will Stanford be able to handle that? Going on the road there against a team that's very good at home. Sun Devils, it does feel like it's like anytime you think maybe they're about to drop back, they've rallied. They won that series. They found a way to win that series against Oregon State. And then they go on the road to Oregon and, kind of get drubbed the first 2 days, but they still salvage the game. They don't get swept. That to me is impressive. It feels like two teams that just fight hard here. And it hasn't really been smooth sailing for either one of them. They both had to overcome some things. And I just think it's a great showdown. And so I'm buying Stanford right now, as I talked about on a couple of shows probably already this week. I love the way this team is trending. I love the fact that they've had to work hard for it. They're not steamrolling people. I think they can go on the road and handle themselves okay here. But I'm just really, really fascinated by this series.
Kendall, player of interest.
Well, what's the common denominator with Arizona State as a team? It's that they late in games, they tend to go on runs, right? They tend to come back on teams. I think when you look at Stanford, I think the one thing that stood out from Aaron's coverage over the weekend against UCLA was Ryan Bruno. He comes in the game on Friday and closes that things out, with 2 1/3, then comes back in the series finale and goes 2 shutout. And by the way, I don't know what he looked like up close, but like the pictures in like your story, like he looks great physically.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how much weight he's lost, but I mean, it's got to be 10 or 15 pounds. But he looked electric. He's 90, 96, 97. He bumped to
98 with plus changeup. Yeah.
So I just think when you look at that element, like that's an element to me that like Arizona State doesn't quite have, like that dude that can come out of the bullpen late in the game and keep a team like Arizona State who really thrives on late comebacks from getting in a groove and kind of surprising you. So I'm going to go with Ryan Bruno.
Joe.
First off, before I give a player, would you guys like facts on Perquimans County, North Carolina?
Yes,
absolutely.
So the entire county has a population of 13,005.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Or that's estimated 13,210. But per capita, a lot of famous people from Perquimans County. Are you ready for this?
Yes.
So, well, it's really only 2, but still, for a county that size, famous radio DJ Wolfman Jack from Perquimans County, North Carolina. Wow. And the more pertinent for us, the Great Catfish Hunter from Perquimans County.
Oh. Was it Wolfman Jack in American Graffiti with Richard Dreyfuss? Was he in that movie?
Let's see. He sure was.
Right. Well, there you go.
1973 feature. He appeared as himself in George Lucas's second feature film, American Graffiti.
There you go.
Oh, he's also in the sequel, which was called More American Graffiti, which, come on, let's come up with a better name than that.
That's forgettable there. That was
the third one should have been called Most American Graffiti.
That's right.
Anyway, Arizona State. I'm going to go Nick McLean as my player here. And just because he's kind of brought some reinforcements to this lineup, right? Not that it necessarily needed it. They've been swinging the bats pretty well, but he's only played in 12 games this year, was coming back from an injury. And I think there's always a little bit of a worry, even with a player as talented as him, that you add an element like that into your lineup and it can kind of take a team playing well and change the culture, change the chemistry of that lineup. But he's come in and really just hit the ground running. And if anything, he's obviously made the Arizona State lineup even deeper. So Nick McLean.
Love it. I'm going to go Arizona State too. Fitzy, you're right up on Stanford last week and was really, really awesome because Stanford has been a hard team to get your arms around, and it's not easy to see the West Coast teams. You got to really, unless you're Joe Healy, who just lives and dies by the Pac-12 network. It's
shut up.
And by the way, Stanford, your streaming situation is ghastly. Is it me, right? Or
no, it's not you, Runes. And can I just interject here? And I don't want to put anybody on blast, but like that screen that Stanford has is a joke. It's a disgrace. They need to call netting pros right now. There were 3 balls, as I understand it, that went straight through the screen, foul balls. So not only is this thing like you can't see the freaking field on the stream
unsafe.
Because like it's the damn screen is so thick. It's an outrage. Your photos, like trying to take photos of that screen is a pain in the butt. It's terrible. The screen is terrible. Also, it's not safe. Like there was a ball that apparently came pretty close to a baby in the stands through the screen. Can we get that fixed, Stanford? Are you listening?
Can somebody call Kyle Peterson and get him on the horn on this?
By
the way, Kyle, if you're watching this, it's nettingpros.com.
Netting Pros.
Good friend of the podcast too, by the way.
Oh, big weekend for lawyers in Palo Alto.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Some ambulance chasers running around sunken diamonds.
Seriously, they're on their way. So
it's like they're like the wrecker services. You know how the wreckers will get in like a busy intersection and like pile up. All of a sudden, you're gonna have lawyers at their game, their next home game.
Yep.
I like it very much. So, Fitzy, you gave me these names for Stanford. Kendall mentioned Ryan Bruno. I always want to call him Tony Bruno, famous radio sports host in the Philly area. But Ryan Bruno pitching great. You got to ignore his numbers. Drew Dowd in the bullpen, kind of helping Bruno. That feels like a real thing for Stanford. And then Alberto Rios is kind of an emerging, a bat who has emerged. I'm going to stick to Arizona State. Ryan Campos is really their player of interest because when he plays, they're so much better, but he's been out with an oblique for a while now. I'm starting to get worried, like, is he coming back? So the player of interest that's top of mind right now is Owen Stevenson. It is Arizona State's getting very inconsistent starts from Christian Curtis and Ross Dunn. Some are very good, some are not very good, but they're married to those two. And Owen Stevenson, they're having to use a Swiss Army knife to try and win 2 games. He's been great in a closing role, kind of an extended closer, but I think they're toying around with, and maybe even have done it, starting him in case of emergency. So however Owen Stevenson is deployed this weekend, it's like they get one crack at him and it better go well. So very interesting pitcher to me. Fitzy.
Good stuff. Is it my turn? I thought I just gave you that one.
Oh, you gave the series?
He just went.
Oh, so everyone's good. We're good on that series?
Yeah.
Kendall, you're next with the series.
Yeah, I'll go to the ACC. I was just kind of crunching numbers. NC State at Notre Dame. This is a really interesting series for both these teams. I think Notre Dame was a club that coming into the season, we weren't real sure what to expect in Sean Stifler's first year, whereas we kind of thought NC State would be a really good club. NC State sitting at their conference record's not great. They're, what is it?
8-12, 8-13.
Yeah, so they're 8. Yeah, they're 8-12. Notre Dame sitting at 13-11, and I think this is a really interesting series. So I'm just kind of crunching these numbers. So, like, for me, like NC State, this is a must-win series because if you lose this series, even if you win your last 2, assuming North Carolina and assuming Pitt takes 1 game, you're sitting at 13-16 in the ACC. Like that means you're going to have to win some games in the conference tournament to get in the NCAA tournament. So this is a big weekend for them. I think for Notre Dame, I think a lot of people are going to point to the loss of Jack Finley for the year with Tommy John and go, oh, well, let's see how they do without Jack Finley. Well, they did sweep Virginia at home without Jack Finley a couple weeks ago. So this is a really interesting series for both teams. I think it's going to be a high level of play. And, NC State's going to be really interesting this weekend just for the simple fact that they're kind of playing for their lives. Like, they lose this series, the pathway gets incredibly difficult. It already is pretty difficult.
Joseph.
I'll go Matt Willardson with NC State. he's kind of an interesting story in terms of he's been a nice arm the last couple of years for NC State. That's kind of how I would put it. You know, you knew what you were going to get. He wasn't really controlling games, but he'd get you deep into games. He'd give your team a chance to win. When his changeup was really popping, he'd give you a little more than that. And this year, he's really taken another step. I mean, he shaved more than a run off of his ERA. He's cut down on his walk rate. He's limiting hitters a little bit more. He's cut down on his wild pitches, hit by pitches. Like just across the board, he's turned into a much better pitcher. And by some measures has been NC State's best arm this year. So, you know, they knew what they were going to get from him from a floor standpoint. It just feels like he's introduced a higher ceiling for himself than I think most of us, myself included, saw. And I will leave you with this one more thing. Tanner Thatch, it turns out, his great uncle is Catfish Hunter. So this is what they in the news business, what they call a developing story.
That is a developing story. Oh my gosh, that's great. Boys, I'll go player of interest, Jack Penny of Notre Dame. I had them earlier in the year, and he was hitting like 200 maybe, and he's up to like 253. I see he's hitting fourth now. Notre Dame was so old last year, that Omaha team, and Penny barely played. He played when one of the middle infielders got hurt, but you could see the talent. Left-handed hitter, looks the part, and he must be on some type of tear right now to be up to basically 255-ish. I mentioned the double-digit home runs. So Notre Dame does. I think what you said, Kendall, is real. Like without Jack, I'm skeptical of Notre Dame. Like they keep winning games and they've not been swept, but without Jack Finley, I mean, man, I don't know. Like they don't look the part. They're just winning a ton of games. So Jack Penny's a player of interest to me because they need some depth in that lineup. Yeah.
NC State does look the part, and I just cannot quit this team. I don't understand why they're not better than they are. I don't get it, but I will tell you this. Sam Highfill over the last week made 2 appearances and sure seemed like Sam Highfill of old. It was 4 shut. He actually started against East Carolina midweek and threw 4 shutout innings. And then he came back the bullpen against Citadel on the weekend and threw 4 innings of 1 run ball. So 8 innings, one run on the weekend. That's really encouraging. You know, I mean, and I think last seen him against Florida State 3 weeks back now. And he was actually good for me against Florida State, but like, it was clearly not the same old Highfill. Like the stuff has not come back all the way from the back injury stuff he had to deal with last year. And, you know, Elliot Avent said, hey, like he looked a little bit more like Sam Highfill today, you know, he's, you know, it's a good sign for us, but
yes, solid. I give it a solid. That's a solid 6.5.
Joe, what do you think? I need some help, Joe. What do you got?
I mean, I thought it was like, I mean, it was a good attempt. You were doing it off the cuff. So like, I give you a couple extra bonus. It just wasn't gravelly enough for me. Like there's like, it needs to be like a,
that's right.
When you're talking about a pitcher like Sam Highfill, you're talking about someone who's pitched in Omaha, won a game against Vanderbilt. That's a little. It's like
that's
kind of edging into
8.
Ed Orgeron.
Yeah,
like towards the end, it was getting closer to Ed Orgeron.
Love Elliot Avent.
Fitzy, you get points for even trying the Elliot because that's always welcome because Elliot's that good.
By the way, Runes, can I tell you a secret that like you will find unbelievable? That Elliot Avent once thought I didn't like him. Like, could you imagine me not liking Elliot Avent?
How could you not? Yeah, how could any human on
like he is like an honorary East Texan. Like he would be you know where he'd be perfect? Cut and shoot.
Cut and shoot high.
Like he would love cut and shoot.
A good like retirement job.
They have copperheads everywhere that will bite you when you put your hands in the bushes.
Oh, that's right. He did get bit by that copperhead. That's right. He's got street cred in cut and shoot. Are we kidding?
I mean,
go Cowboys.
So imagine if he walked into what was the name of the bowling alley?
Take a spare.
Was it Spare Time? Time to Spare. There it is.
Time to Spare.
Walking into Spare Time and going, I just got bit by a copperhead and I grabbed that thing and took it to the hospital.
Can I get a beer?
Like instant cred. Hashtag instant cred.
That was the best part of the story, by the way, is that he brought the snake in and like apparently the hospital staff was like, you don't have to do that anymore. Like we just, you know, that was a thing that used to have to happen. And now you don't need to bring that snake in here. Please, sir.
We haven't been doing that since Wyatt Earp was alive. So we're good. That is great. Oh, the Elliot offshoot. Fitzy, were you on your way to a player of interest?
I'm good. Sam Highfield is my player of interest. He's maybe he's back. Maybe he's back, and that's big for NC State.
Yes. Kendall, player of interest in this series, please.
The Copperhead.
Thank you.
I'll just go with like Notre Dame's pitching staff as a whole. I mean, when you look at Aiden Tyrell on the front end, there's been some games this year where, he's gone 5 innings, given up 6-7 runs. I think against an offense like that, they've got to get them off to a fast start, as Joe and Aaron alluded to with some of NC State's pitching. So I'm just going to go with their pitching staff as a whole. I'm with you, Runes, to the extent that, without Finley, I just wonder if they have staying power.
Yeah.
But I mean, without him, they won 2 series. Granted, I don't know if the Florida State series counts, but this year, but they have won 2 series since he's been out.
Can I just interject here and say, Coach Healy and Coach Rooney both conspiring against me on my mashing the under here. Like Runes rolls it back around to Raj, even though Raj started this segment.
I know. I did double up on
even
him.
had a turn. He really keeps coming in with these facts about Susquehanna or wherever the heck.
These are life lessons.
No, that's Perkins County. Get it right.
Joe, you need to pick a series. That will get us back on track.
I do need to pick a series. I had enough Copperheads. The neighborhood I used to live in here in Durham, we've since moved. The neighborhood my first house here in Durham, we had enough Copperheads just in the neighborhood because it backed up to like a reservoir basically, and they like those wet kind of areas where they can sun and then go in the water and stuff. I actually had I still have it saved in my phone, like a snake guy. Basically, it'll just come and remove the snakes from my yard. Like that's something I had to have on my person at that because little dog running around the grass.
You're not a just chop its head off with a shovel kind of guy.
No, look at me. Are you kidding? Like no, I
thought you were from East Texas.
Yeah, what's up, dude?
You know what? You aren't Joe. Joe is to East Texas as Runes is to Delco. Just a couple of frauds.
Delco fraud.
You know who doesn't? You know who doesn't call the snake guy? People that go to spare time.
Yeah, no,
that's right.
Time to spare.
Time to spare.
Come on, Ken. We're trying to help them grow the business.
Because I'm from East Texas, I think I have a healthy respect for the Copperheads, and that's why I stay away. Because we had water moccasins too growing up in Texas.
Those are
and
bad.
Those suckers are aggressive. Like Copperheads don't really want anything to do with you, but the water moccasins will seek you out, and they're petty. They know they're petty.
Yeah,
they'll
ruin your day.
No doubt. Okay, let's go. Let's go Tennessee and Georgia. I wrote about it in my SEC weekend preview that's going to come out tomorrow morning as we record this Thursday morning. It's a big series for both for different reasons. Tennessee's trying to host, and I've said this before on this podcast, certainly on Highway to Hoover. If you're West Virginia or Wake Forest or Coastal Carolina, like you are praying that Tennessee hosts because you don't want them to show up in your regional. And that's what they're pushing for. They're 11-10 in the league. If they win this series, all of a sudden they kind of look like a much more viable host team. They beat Wofford on Tuesday and their RPI went up like 6 points. So they were 16 as of earlier this afternoon. So they are trending in that right direction. Georgia, meanwhile, is kind of in this group along with A&M, Auburn, Alabama of bubble teams in the SEC. Their RPI is in okay shape. They don't have RPI problems. They just need enough SEC wins. And they do still have Missouri in front of them, but they also have series with Tennessee and LSU. So it's a really, really tough path for Georgia. And if there is a path for Georgia, it kind of feels like it has to start this weekend by stealing the series. Or maybe stealing it's not even the right way to put it because they're at home this weekend. So big series for two teams for kind of different reasons. I think it's a tough matchup for Georgia, if I'm going to be honest. People have asked, hey, does I think Runes, you've brought this up, does Tennessee's offense travel? I think it'll travel at Foley Field just because Foley Field plays fairly small, especially late in the season as well. So I do think that is a place where Tennessee could have some offensive success.
I like that. So I'll go player of interest for Georgia. Let's go Liam Sullivan. It just feels like when they've had good weekends, he's had a good weekend. It's not your premier SEC ace per se, but there's skill there. And for Georgia to win the series, my concern that Tennessee's offense doesn't travel great is going to have to be true. Otherwise, Georgia's not winning the series. So Liam Sullivan, looking at you, he's got to win his start. Fitzy, player of interest.
Yeah, player of interest for me. How about Chase Burns? Moving to the bullpen, and seems like he's
Fitzy ejected himself.
Now we'll never know. We'll just never know.
Player of interest, Chase Burns. He gone.
Yeah.
He stole my player, so.
Well, Kendall, you don't have any time to spare. We just need your player of interest right now. Do you see what I did there?
Yeah, I'll go with.
Hi, Aaron. Welcome back.
What'd you do? Did you hit eject?
I you know what? This is what happens every once in a while when you've got 47 tabs open. You close the wrong one by accident.
Uh-oh.
This is the first ever tab-related accident on the history of the show.
Slippery tab syndrome over there. Oh my goodness.
Chase Burns in the bullpen is my guy. I think that's a fascinating move. I like him there. And with Andrew Lindsay, pitching well in the rotation, I think it works. So that's what I got.
Wow. Kendall, a lot of evidence there that maybe having 40 plus tabs open, not ideal.
You are correct. I'm just going to be silent. I'm not going to say a word. I do think he picked the right guy, though, because if you look at Georgia in that Arkansas series, they won 2 games in bottom of the ninth in that series. And so, having Chase Burns red hot coming out of the bullpen, that's a huge feather in their cap. I guess from a Tennessee standpoint, I'd go with Chase Dollander. I mean, I think Tennessee now, you're back on track. You're in the, you're about to potentially get back in the hosting discussion. But I think the bigger picture here is like Tennessee is now preparing itself for this postseason run. They're not a club that's going, oh, we've got to get all the pieces together just to make the tournament. Now they know they're going to be in the tournament. Now it's all about putting all the pieces together. And I think for Tennessee, when you look at Chase Dollander, his ERA is still approaching 6 in conference. He is a guy that starting this weekend, they need to establish him as that dude again. And for them to get to Omaha, for them to compete for a national championship, which, granted, that is still the expectation with this team. Like, yeah, you know what? They, might still be out of the hosting mix for now, but like the expectation is just for this team to get to Omaha. Nothing's changed from a personnel standpoint. So I think for me, Chase Dollander is a guy to watch this weekend.
I like that very much. Boys, it's my turn to pick a series, correct?
Yep.
All right. So
did you get Joe's player?
Joe
gave us
series.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He gave us a series.
Yeah. I kind of screwed you on that one, Kendall. I made you go twice last series. Give me Oregon at USC. And this is very interesting to me because I think Oregon can win this league. I know that's going to require Stanford to falter a little bit, and that might be a fool's errand on my part, but I just really believe in this Oregon team. They are now 5-2 in Pac-12 series. And I just, they've got a little bit of everything. They've got maybe not as much pitching as you like, but they've got enough. I love Drew Cowley at shortstop. I like their offense very much. They're playing well, and they've quickly become this postseason expectant program under Mark Wasikowski. And I'm worried for USC that, maybe they're turning into a pumpkin here. So for USC, this is really important because most of USC's postseason resume is Pac-12 dependent. Their non-conference resume to me is not awesome. So to me, USC's got to be in the top 4 of the Pac-12 or they're going to have a problem for the postseason. But anyway, I think it's a really important series for both teams. Oregon could host. Maybe they could do a little bit more if they get crazy hot. USC, there's a little bit of an elimination weekend sitting here. So, Fitzy, player of interest.
Yeah, Runes, I'm going to go with my man, Riku Nishida.
Nice.
Just a wonderful little player, a little scrap dog, slasher who, started the season, I believe, at second base. But one of the things we liked about this Oregon team is they've got a whole bunch of guys that are athletic and versatile, and they just had a whole bunch of sliding parts. And like you said, they were able to slide Drew Cowley to shortstop, and you got Gavin Grant now at second and Nishida in the outfield, but he's playing leadoff for him. He had a huge weekend against Arizona State, 3 straight multi-hit games. I think he had 8 hits in the series. He's just a guy that makes him go. High energy guy with barrel control, and he's just a super fun player. There's so many. I'm actually glad he's not playing second base anymore because that means it'll make it easier to get him on the all-fit team because second base always is an in-demand position. Outfield, he's got a spot. You can go ahead and stick him on there. So I'm in the Cape League last year too. Just fun player.
Love it. Kendall, player of interest.
Yeah, I'm going to go with my man, Jay Stoffel. I was just kind of looking at his conference stats. 2.91 ERA and 43 and a third with 47 Ks and 18 walks. I mean, that's really good, and that's very consistent. And so I think anytime you go on the road, it's important to get a good start on Fridays. And so I'll go with Jay Stoffel. I was actually reaching out to Waz because it sounds like Saban Sabalos went out with an injury over the weekend, and he did not play in the Oregon game or the Oregon State game. So it'd be very interesting to see if they get him back this weekend.
I like Kendall picking the fabulous fit dog here, Jay Stoffel, one of my guys.
Fabulous fit dog. Thank you, Joseph. Who do you like as a player of interest here?
I'm going to go with a unit. I'm going to go with the USC bullpen as a whole because at the beginning of the year. I meant to say this on top. No one is making the counter argument to this, but I just wanted to be said that really, kind of regardless of how the rest of USC's season goes, like this has been an unmitigated success.
Yes.
When you consider that they were so poor last year and then lost what they lost via moving on, pro baseball, transfer, graduation, all that stuff. The roster's just, I don't mean to disrespect, just not that talented. And yet they're right kind of in the thick of things. So even if they don't make the postseason, still just a huge success and a great building block moving forward. But the USC bullpen has been huge because if you'd have told me going into the season that, Eric Hammond was going to average about 4 innings an outing and Jaden Agassi's ERA was going to be almost 9, I would have kind of gone like, whoa, like this is, but the bullpen has really kind of helped keep them viable on the mound. So Garrett Clark, Kyle Wish, Caden Connolly, Josh Blum, those are kind of their 4 main guys, all have more than 20 appearances on the year. And they're all being used kind of liberally. They're all guys who can throw multiple innings if it comes to it. That's really kind of, again, helped them stay viable on the mound when they're not really getting the starting pitching that you would like to get 5, 6, 7 innings at a time.
Like it. Fitzy, before you pick your series, Tanner Smith of Oregon, who's always been one of my favorite players, he's quietly having a really good year. Maybe not like a crazy, his OPS is 971, but man, Oregon, I cannot get them out of my my brain. Like I think Oregon's a team that could do some damage in the postseason. So Fitzy, you're going to pick between Louisville at Clemson or Vandy at Alabama.
Okay. I'm going to go Louisville at Clemson, and this is the one that's like 2 teams heading in totally different directions, right? Like Clemson's won 4 series in a row. It feels like all of a sudden this team is very much in the mix to host a regional. I mean, like who saw that coming, a month ago? And it's quality series that they've won too, especially the last 3 weeks. They look like a team that has a lot of confidence, whereas Louisville has now lost 3 series in a row and 4 of their last 5. So that's, I believe, identical to Virginia. Louisville and Virginia both kind of trending in the exact same directions here. It's a big weekend for both these teams. Clemson's trying to host. Louisville at this point is fighting for its postseason life now. I mean, they're sliding toward the bubble right now, just like NC State, 9-12 in the ACC. So it's almost a must win for them. Then they go to Virginia the week after this. So it's like this is kind of make or break time for the Cards. Let's see what you're made out of.
Kendall, player of interest.
Give me Caden Grice for Clemson. He's been just red hot the last few weeks. I mean, in the ACC play now, he's hitting 342, 8 bombs, 27 RBIs, and on the mound, his ERA under 4 in 34 and a third innings, and teams are only hitting 185 against him. He's been kind of the big key for Clemson's turnaround. It seems like every time I've done the digest over the last couple of weeks, I'm writing about him, so he's been a big key for them. So keep an eye on Caden Grice.
Joe?
Ryan McCoy of Louisville, not only is he one of their better offensive players, he was always going to be important, but with the injuries they're going to have, with the injuries Louisville has behind the plate, he's also kind of been pushed into a role back there. So he's going to have to be steady in both facets for Louisville to have success.
I like it. Boys, I'm assuming that the 2 Clemson starters will be Austin Gordon and Ethan Darden besides Caden Grice. That sound right, Fitzy? Does that sound like they're – I know Austin Gordon pitched against BC, and he leads them in innings. So I'm just going to say, like, it feels – I don't know. I'm a believer in Eric Bakich and that coaching staff. I'm not sure if I'm a full-blown buyer of Clemson's roster. And I just, Caden Grice seems like he's really having a big year, and Kendall picked him. So give me the other two rotation guys, Gordon or Darden. One of them is going to have to win their start to back up what Grice is doing. And so Louisville, the Ryan McCoy thing is another great pick, Joe, because that's a real issue. But I don't know. I'm not fully bought into Clemson starters. I will say this. I watched some of Gordon's start against BC, and the stuff is good. It's
the stuff is real, Runes.
Yeah.
It's real. It's I think up to like maybe 95 with a hammer. I mean, a high spin, tight breaking ball. It's real. I mean, Darden is more of an X factor for me, but I like Gordon a lot. I think he's a future star.
Yeah, it's weird. His numbers are weird. Like the ERA is 4.5, but he barely walks anybody. Doesn't give up a ton of hits. But maybe I should be buying Clemson. I don't know. Like this, it's so hard to bet against Louisville, but I'm going to this weekend.
Yeah, and I was very late to come around on Clemson, but I think I'm there now. I think actually like the pieces were always kind of there, just a matter of like in the beginning they didn't quite fit together, and now they do, And so I think they're actually quite interesting. They're very athletic, and they have some depth and flexibility, and they have enough arm strength too. I think they're interesting.
Yep. Kendall, as the since Joe is the the guy at SEC Extra, he's our guy over there. Can we have Joe preview Vandy at Alabama?
I guess. I'm going to go Google Perkins County, though, while he's doing that. Is that okay?
Perquimans.
Not to be confused with Plaquemine Parish in Louisiana.
Correct. That's an important distinction. That's correct.
Thank you.
Vandy
at Alabama, Joe.
Yes, thank you. And I am the co-guy at SEC Extra. Mark Etheridge, of course. It's a partnership.
Hey, before you preview this, though, I'm going to go make a bet. I'll be right back.
Oh boy. Hey,
Come on now.
Hey, yo.
Come on.
Low.
Hey. Alabama being the home team here helps. You just don't know with Alabama. I mean, they're on like version 3 or 4.0 of their rotation at this point. Considering they, it was Hitt and Hess and McNary, and then McNary was out, and then Hitt and Hess had been hurt, and so Holman's in. Now Holman maybe is out. McMillan's back though. It's just week to week, you don't know what you're going to get there. They're kind of the same team they've been all along though, where it's like their depth, I think, is great. Like they've got 13, 14 position players that I like, and that I know Coach Bo likes, and the fact that they've done as well as they have on the mound with the injuries, I think is a testament to what their depth is on the mound, because there are teams that have had just as bad injury issues in the SEC that are not succeeding as much as Alabama is on the mound. So I think there's a lot to say about that. Vanderbilt, I think I said this on radio the other day. I mean, kind of quietly, Vanderbilt might be the most complete team in the SEC, and it feels like they're actually maybe coming into their own a little more. Hunter Owen is back. They've got a couple of bullpen arms that they're expecting back here in the next several weeks. So you add that to the guys they've already had, and an offense that is still, by many measures, it's hard to believe because there's just not a lot of bold headline names on it, but it's still an offense that's operating as one of the couple of best in the SEC. So they're just really, really well-rounded. I think we saw that last weekend against Kentucky, where they won games in a few different ways.
Yep, that's good. For Vandy, I'm going to go RJ Schreck. He, the grad transfer from Duke, he's got a 1219 OPS, and he just is a different hitter. 12 home runs, 14 doubles, 50 RBIs, more walks than strikeouts, significantly more walks than strikeouts. He just adds an element to Vandy that they really needed. There's several players of interest on this roster, but give me RJ Schreck. He really moves the needle for them, in my opinion. Go ahead, Fitzy.
Yeah, and I think Andrew Pinckney moves the needle for Alabama. He had, I think, a 5-hit game against LSU. One of those games, couple of multi-hit games this past weekend. He's kind of the big tools guy. He's got power. He runs well. He's hit for. He was my big breakout pick to click this year, which was not a difficult pick. Like it was a very obvious pick, frankly, but he's lived up to it. He's hitting 346 with a 1057 OPS with 10 homers. And he's playing well right now, coming off a big weekend. So he's got to continue to be a big difference maker for this team moving forward. He's their guy.
Kendall.
I'm going to go with the designated Vandy security blanket and Devin Futrell. When you look at, Carter Holton, Hunter Owen, and guys like that, guys that have had over 5 starts or 5 starts or more in the SEC, both those guys have ERAs north of 3 in the SEC. And when you look at Devin Futrell, the talented lefty for them, his ERA sitting at 2.43. 29 strikeouts, 6 walks in Southeastern Conference play. So he's kind of been their security blanket in SEC play this year, and he's a big key for them this weekend.
Love it. Well done, boys. Hey, as we wrap, never a bad time to get a subscription to D1Baseball.com. This is the best time. Also get your subscription to SEC Extra. If you use the code SAVE23 at checkout, you get 20% off. Maybe you'll get 23% off. We could round up to that. But type in SAVE23 at checkout and you'll get 20% off. I promise you that. Really good stuff. We're getting towards the postseason. Joe, you've got two things of particular interest to me on SEC Extra. One is an article, one is a podcast. So you've been doing these great Highway to Hoover podcasts. This week, it's Leah Vann, who's the beat reporter for LSU, who, all the beat reporters in the SEC do such a great job. She certainly does an awesome job with LSU. You also have a feature on, is it Hunter Gilliam from Kentucky? Is that his first name?
Yeah, Hunter Gillum.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So I've enjoyed that too. I had a Missouri game last night. I even referenced your piece because I just, it's hard to learn about these individual players sometimes, but these pieces that you do and dive deep in there, that's really, that's great stuff. Kendall, your piece today, I got to get the Rogers review was awesome. Kind of took me around the country for big things happening, like, hey, give me some context on Scott Foxhall getting fired, talk about Michigan State, who's probably off my radar but needs to be on my radar. And then Fitzy, we referenced your piece on, UCLA and Stanford are teams that you got to know about right now, and they've been hard to know about. So the fact that you were out there, really, really helpful. Stanford's been to back-to-back Omahas, and only 2 teams have done that. So it's that's a team that I need to know more about. So bravo. Well done, gentlemen.
Cheers, Coach. Great job as always. Hey, this was a great show. I got to say, as usual, I elevated my game when lights came on. As I usually do. And so I just want to give myself a shout out.
Fitzy, is it fair to say you're the Steph Curry of the D1 Baseball Podcast? Is that you kind of just dropped 50 on us right there?
Yeah, no, listen, I mean, we can just kind of
wouldn't go that far.
Cruise through the regular season, keep ourselves healthy, and we're just going to light it up, man.
Oh gosh. Did you guys see that Joel Embiid won the Kurt Reed Award for the NBA? See that?
Did not see that.
Have we done any further research on Kurt Reed?
Joe, you're the head
hold
of
up
research.
Hold up and cut and shoot. I heard at the.
That's right.
Yes.
I'm really
time to spare.
Like any good researcher, I'm just really waiting for the information to come to me. So anyone associated with SIU.
I'm actually shocked. I'll be honest. I'm blown away that someone has not offered up who Kurt Reed really is.
Yeah, we could
fishy.
tell you, but we'd have to kill you. Joe, I do have a homework assignment for you for next year's D1 Baseball staff retreat. I'd like you to reach out to the good folks at Time to Spare in Cut and Shoot, Texas. See what kind of banquet facilities they have. What kind of, do they host corporate functions? Just see if you get us some quotes.
Runes, would be easier for me just to drive up there and check it out. It's only like 30 minutes from me, 35 minutes.
Yeah, we could just stay at Kendall's place.
Oh, there we go.
Is that
we'll
really
have sleeping bags on the floor?
The full Cut and Shoot experience, though? I don't know. Like, that doesn't feel like we're getting the authentic Cut and Shoot experience. Although staying at the Rogers house is great. Put a couple of cinder blocks
in the yard there and get the full experience.
Thank you.
To be fair, if we're going to stay anywhere, we're not going to be able to stay in Cut and Shoot. Unless we're going to stay at somebody's house, because I don't think there's.
Well, I don't know. They do have a bowling alley now, so maybe they have like a Quality Inn or something.
There we go.
All right, I'll stay in at the Rogers house. I'm out on the Quality Inn. Gentlemen, well done. Enjoy your games this weekend. Everyone have a wonderful weekend. We'll catch you next week and next time on the D1 Baseball Podcast.